For millennia, the Western Abenaki people have been stewards of this land where we now have the privilege of gathering. Let us honor their legacy of love and stewardship. Good morning. I'm Sarah Franklin, your worship associate for this morning. On behalf of the entire worship team, I'm very glad to welcome the Reverend Debbie Ingram, Executive Director of Vermont Interfaith Action. You can see from your order of service that Reverend Debbie has taken as her title for the service with us today, putting words in our mouths. And she asserts that if we want to do justice in this world, we will have to find our prophetic voice. We look forward to hearing more. We appreciate those of you who were able to be here in the sanctuary today, as well as those of you joining from home on the live stream. We're glad to have your company and fellowship. For over 155 years, this church has been a sanctuary for those seeking spiritual sustenance, as well as advocacy for peace and justice in the wider world. We invite you to continue with us today on that path. Please know that there are hearing assist devices available on the table in the back of the sanctuary for those who would find them helpful. It's always a pleasure to welcome newcomers and guests who join us for worship. If this is your first or second time attending, you are invited to stand or just wave your hand so that we can welcome you personally. Oh, we're so glad that you're here on this challenging morning of low temperatures and high snow. Today, Don Evans is our, no. Oh, there you are. Hi, Don. You're here. Don Evans is our lay pastoral caregiver. So if you have a personal concern, challenge, or loss that calls for support and the prayers of our spiritual community, you can look for Don after the service to share more deeply. So Don is right here, as you have seen. Now let's take a few moments to turn to our neighbors in nearby pews and share a few words of greeting. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. We promise that there will be time to continue your conversations. And it's such a good thing to see how easily you are in conversation. I did want to say, yes, I did want to say that we will all be joining each other for a coffee hour afterwards. And there's a lot going on today, so we'll hear about it in the announcements. Now, let's take a deep breath, and don't forget the important check your cell phones. Please make sure they're turned off. And we will enter more deeply into our time of worship with the prelude.
Walter Brueggemann writes in his book, The Prophetic Imagination, "The prophet does not ask if the vision can be implemented, for questions of implementation are of no consequence until the vision can be imagined. The imagination must come before the implementation. Our culture is competent to implement almost anything and to imagine almost nothing." Let us join together in our opening hymn. Please stand in body or spirit to sing "We'll Build a Land," number 121.
Let us now light the chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. If you have one available at home, we invite those of you who have one handy to light a chalice along with us. Assisting us today in the chalice lighting is Juliana Plummer. Thank you, Juliana. You get the matches. Yeah. We light this flame an enduring symbol of our collective commitment to lead with truth and compassion. Please join me now in saying the words of affirmation adapted from L. Griswold Williams, found in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human need, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant.
Before I invite the children to come forward, I would like to remind you that next Sunday is Easter, and if you would like to join in tradition of wearing an Easter bonnet, this is open to all ages, all genders, and anybody in between that I might have left out. Please come and join us next week. And now I would ask the children to come forward for a story. As usual, I need your help this morning. Last week, you helped me a lot, and I hope you're going to help me now, too, because I want to sing a song that you guys all know, and I don't want to be the only singer that they hear. So could you tell who would like to tell what this song is, because they can't see the words from here?
Actually, I don't want to.
Actually, she doesn't want to, which is great, because that comes right into our story for all ages in just a second. Octavia, do you know what this is? Okay, I'm doing a good job. They don't know what this is, but we sing it almost every week. Oh, you actually do? What is it? Our 7 Principles song. And if you would like to join in, it goes vaguely, the tune is quite a lot like the Oscar Mayer Wiener song with some variation, so it's pretty easy to sing. So will you guys help me? Okay. Each person is important. Be kind in all you do. We're here to work together and search for what is true. Each person needs a voice and vote, build a fair and peaceful world, and know we're all together in the Earth's lifeboat. Good. Now, there's a part of this that I want to talk about this morning. One of the things that it says on there is each person has a voice and vote. And today I want to talk about our voice, and that everyone, the people that are still in the pews and all of us right here, we all have a voice. And the world needs our voice. The voice can be a loud voice, but it could also be a whisper. And a whisper can be very powerful too. And sometimes when we say something, some of us, and I see some of you are kind of shy from time to time. There are other ways of saying things, not just with our voices or our mouths, but we can speak in other ways. We can speak with our bodies. We can speak with being creative or with artwork or all kinds of ways that we can say something. Now, what I'm thinking of is, have you ever seen somebody who's lonely, maybe at school, who's sitting alone? What could you do? Do you want to talk in the microphone?
You could play with them or sit next to them.
Exactly. What were you going to say, Lucy?
Same thing.
Same thing. Okay. So you could say something to them, and you could welcome them, or you could just go and, like you said, sit beside them. When somebody's lonely, that's saying something with your body. You're sitting there and you're saying something. What if you saw something that was just really beautiful, and you couldn't exactly find the words to say something, what else could you do?
Just stand there looking.
You could just stand there looking. What else? Do you know Sarah over there that was just talking? Do you know what she does lots of times when she sees something really beautiful? She writes a poem about it. Could you do that? I know something else you could do, and I've seen you do it. With crayons or markers, what could you do? You could draw a picture. You could say something with your artwork. What if you saw somebody being bullied? This is a tough one. Octavia?
You could tell them to stop.
Exactly.
Be an upstander instead of a bystander.
Did you hear that? Let me say that again.
Be an upstander instead of a bystander.
Perfect. Be an upstander instead of a bystander. Okay, yeah, sometimes it's scary to say stop, isn't it? But sometimes we have to be brave. We have to say something with our mouths, and we have to say stop. Sometimes we say something by even what we're wearing. Da-da-da-da-da. That's why I wore this shirt. I'm saying what?
Once I made a T-shirt that said, "Okay, please go away, I'm reading."
Okay, so she said with her voice, I don't know if you could hear that, please go away, I'm reading. Is that pretty much what you said? Okay, well,
So I didn't have to speak.
so she put it on her shirt so she didn't have to speak the words.
Earrings that say okay.
And she also has earrings that say okay. Let me think, you got me sidetracked from where I was going. Don't know how that happens. There's lots of ways that we can use our voices or use our imaginations or use our artwork or writing. Oh, I know another way. Have you ever been here for the 4th of July parade that we have on the 3rd of July? Yeah. Have you seen people carrying things on sticks? What? What? Oh, you saw the big geese? Yeah, well, that's not where I was going, but yeah, we saw those big geese. Yeah, sometimes you see people with a sign, and they say, and so other people can see what they're thinking or what they want to say. So that's another way of saying something. And we all need to sometimes say something. And sometimes when we say something, nobody's listening, but we keep saying it until someone's listening. When we're talking about, well, there's all kinds of things that we might want to say over and over until someone hears us. And always remember that your voice is important, okay? Thank you very much. And now we're going to head to the Children's Chapel. If you are still in the pews back there and you want to join us, feel free to come along.
Engaged community, as our e-news shows each week. For example, here's a timely announcement that you've already heard from Sally Armstrong, but the March Mystery Madness celebration is today. So after the service, participants in that program will get to meet their mystery buddies for the first time. Tables are set up in the vestry, just waiting for them. They have numbered cards, and they just have to find their number and then enjoy spending time getting to know another member of the congregation. If you have seen this happen before or you've been part of it before, you know what fun it is just to watch friendships being cemented over those card tables. So that's happening right after the service. And next week, as Sally also told you, is Easter Bonnet Week. So it's a tradition in this church, or has been. I think it was in abeyance during COVID. But if you choose, you can wear a stunning bonnet worthy of Fifth Avenue, or a backwoods wool number, something clever and unique, or some version in between these. Another option is simply to enjoy the Easter bonnets. I don't believe there's a parade scheduled, but it might be spontaneously held. We don't know. So hope to see you next week, and come with or without a bonnet as it suits you. Now we are going to have our offering. Oh, one more announcement from Kay. From Fran. I'm sorry, I have my glasses on. I can't see you.
Traveling in disguise.
All right, there you go, Fran.
Sorry. Good morning. Ooh, let me just move that over. Okay, so we have Transformed by Our Care, we have March Mystery Madness, and we also have Gifts of Love coming along soon. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that. And as she said, I'm Fran Dodd, been a member of the church for eons. Downstairs, you'll find a table with some forms like this that say Gifts for Love and lots of empty spaces. You are welcome to fill one out or take one home and use it for Gifts of Love. Gifts of Love is an event which we're holding on April 14th. It's a celebration of our community of love. And there are many ways to show love. One of the ways is to donate something to Gifts of Love for somebody else to win through a raffle. Another way is to contribute, I might get those words backwards, give some money through Breeze or at the table downstairs towards this fundraising event. The two are not closely connected. It's not an auction of items to see who can bid the most for anything. So it's an equal opportunity winning event. Every household will get 10 raffle tickets, which will soon be available, not today, at the table. And you can put all of your 10 tickets into one thing that you really, really want, or you can spread it out into all the different opportunities. We hope that by next Sunday, we will have lots more contributions of items. And you can do that online as well, where you can also upload a photo. So there are many things that you can give. One of the treasures that I've had waiting for a destination in my home is this dragonfly toy. It's a pull toy, and when it moves, the wings go up and down, make a little bit of a noise. And somebody may have a grandchild or a neighbor with a child or a child coming. You might want to win that. Or just put it on a shelf because it's so colorful. There are also many other kinds of things that you can give from your hearts that you don't have a tangible item. You might invite somebody to make a pie with you. Johanna has already done that. But you could give another pie. You can ask them to come and pick flowers. You can read more about suggestions on the website and in your e-news as well. So submit a form by next week, either online or in person downstairs. Donate funds if you can. No item of gift, whether monetary or a service or a physical item, is too small or Maybe there are some that are too big, but for the most part, we can make arrangements. We will have receptacles for you to put your little raffle tickets into, and whether you win is not tied to how much you contribute. Hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran. Isn't it wonderful to see a pull toy? Those of you with toddler grandchildren, when walking is new, this is exactly the kind of toy you want. Thanks for bringing that. It's so imaginative. I was conjuring a toddler pulling that toy. The Gifts of Love. What a fine program. And as you heard from Fran, equal opportunity for all with the raffle ticket system. So looking forward to that. Thanks. Now, the announcements that yes, I think we've heard about the Easter bonnets, and now we just need to do our offering, right? So, generosity is a spiritual practice central to the well-being of our church community. With our collective resources, our free church gratefully supports the shared values of this community. Each month, the UCM Community Pouch Program shares part of our collection with a church fund or a community organization aligned with our values. This month's Community Pouch recipient is the Community Gospel Choir of Montpelier, under the direction and powerful inspiration of our well-known and loved Reverend Vertus LeVar Robinson. Half our cash offerings will go to our pouch recipient. The other half will directly support the mission and ministry of this congregation. If you wish to designate your entire offering for the community pouch, please indicate that with a note attached to your cash or on the memo line of your check. Checks will go to the church unless designated. Otherwise, the green velvet offering pouches have already been found on the left end of each pew, and I see they're making their way down the row. So we are grateful for each and every gift, whether made in person, mailed, sent from your bank, or automatically charged to a credit card. One by one, your offerings, like the Crones musical offering, which comes up next, are help us to build a better world. So, this version of the traditional Appalachian text and music has some alterations with contributions by Kathy Winter, Betsy Ross, and Marcia Taylor. So, we have the privilege of hearing the Crones.
I was singing with my sister.
We are grateful for the miracle of consciousness that we share. In case you would like to reread this piece later, you can find the prayer and meditation I have chosen in the back of your gray hymnal. It's number 501 by Frederick E. Gillis. I like it because Gillis links us together so strongly. Let me read it to you. Spirit of community in which we share and find strength and common purpose, we turn our minds and hearts toward one another, seeking to bring into our circle of concern all who need our love and support, those who are ill, those who are in pain, either in body or in spirit, those who are lonely, those who have been wronged. Here and now, let us put in our mouths the names of any who suffer these ills. Please speak those names aloud as you are moved to do so. Perhaps just first names, or, if it seems needful, first and last names, so that we can bring them into our circle of concern. Carl. Linda. We are grateful for the miracle of consciousness we share, the consciousness that gives us power to remember, to love, and to care. Thank you for adding to our circle of concern. I apologize, I didn't give our cue to our musician. We have a sung response, Spirit of Life.
Our first reading for today is taken from the Hebrew Scriptures from the book about the prophet Jeremiah. It begins with chapter 1, verses 4 through 10. Jeremiah was one of the major prophets of the Hebrew tradition, and he prophesied for some 40 years in a time that was very difficult in the Middle East, and I'll say a bit more about him in the sermon. Now the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah, saying, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, and before you were born, I consecrated you. I appointed you a prophet to the nations. Then I said, "Ah, Lord God, behold, I do not know how to speak, for I am only a youth." But the Lord said to me, "Do not say, I am only a youth, for to all to whom I send you, you shall go, and whatever I command you, you shall speak. Be not afraid of them, for I am with you to deliver you, says the Lord." Then the Lord put forth his hand and touched my mouth. And the Lord said to me, "Behold, I have put my words in your mouth. See, I have set you this day over nations and over kingdoms, to pluck up and to break down, to destroy and to overthrow, to build and to plant." The second reading today is much more contemporary. It is an article that the poet Amanda Gorman wrote for the New York Times shortly after the inauguration in 2020. Why I Almost Didn't Read My Poem at the Inauguration by Amanda Gorman. It's told like this: Amanda Gorman performed at the inauguration, and the rest is history. The truth is, I almost declined to be the inaugural poet. Why? I was terrified. I was scared of failing my people, my poetry. But I was also terrified on a physical level. COVID was still raging, and my age group couldn't get vaccinated yet. Just a few weeks before, domestic terrorists assaulted the U.S. Capitol, the very steps where I would recite. I didn't know then that I'd become famous, but I did know at the inauguration I was going to become highly visible, which is a very dangerous thing to be in America, especially if you're Black and outspoken and have no Secret Service. I had insomnia and nightmares, barely ate or drank for days. I finally wrote to some close friends and family, telling them that I was most likely going to pull out of the ceremony. The night before I was to give the inaugural committee my final decision felt like the longest of my life. My neighborhood was eerily quiet in that early morning dark. And then it struck me, maybe being brave enough doesn't mean lessening my fear, but listening to it. I closed my eyes in bed and let myself utter all the leviathans that scared me, both monstrous and minuscule. What stood out most of all was the worry that I'd spend the rest of my life wondering what this poem could have achieved. There was only one way to find out. By the time the sun rose, I knew one thing for sure. I was going to be the 2021 inaugural poet. I can't say I was completely confident in my choice, but I was completely committed to it. I'm a firm believer that often terror is trying to tell us of a force far greater than despair. In this way, I look at fear not as cowardice, but as a call forward, a summons to fight for what we hold dear. On that January 20th, what I found waiting beyond my fear was all those who searched beyond their own fears to find space for hope in their lives, who welcomed the impact of a poem into protests, hospitals, classrooms, conversations, living rooms, offices, arts, and all manner of moments. I may have worked on the words, but it was other people who put those words to work. What we've seen isn't just the power of a poem, it's the power of the people. And yes, I still am terrified every day. Yet fear can be love trying its best in the dark. So do not fear your fear. Own it, free it. This isn't a liberation that I or anyone can give you. It's a power you must look for, learn, love, lead, and locate for yourself. Why? The truth is, hope isn't a promise we give, it's a promise we live. Tell it like this, and we, like our words, will not rest. And the rest is history. Well, there may have been a time in your life when you were having an argument with a spouse or a sibling or a parent or a child, when you got a bit flustered and shouted out the familiar epithet, "Don't put words in my mouth." It is certainly true that in the heat of a quarrel, we can get ourselves twisted by the points of the other person and feel like what they are parroting back to us as our own words are not our words at all. While most of us might not like to have words put in our mouths, the prophet Jeremiah felt differently, at least with regard to God. The scripture passage that I read this morning is the call of Jeremiah to the prophetic ministry that he had for some 40 years, which began when he was probably around the age of 21. The word of the Lord came to me, Jeremiah says, and that's one of the most common phrases to introduce a divine oracle. God tells Jeremiah that God has known him, that God has set him apart, and that God has appointed him as a prophet to the nations. And that is nations, plural, not just one nation. And indeed, Jeremiah's prophetic career spanned many countries and many dynasties, and it took place during a time of great turmoil for the people to whom he was prophesying. It was his task to proclaim the end of an era, brought about, according to his theological analysis, as a consequence of the disobedience and rampant injustices of these people. For they have strayed, ungrateful for being delivered out of slavery generations ago. They have been distracted from worshiping God and have stopped paying attention to social justice. They no longer love God with their whole hearts, nor protect the widow and the orphan. They set up a society at its root heartless and uncaring, ungrateful and self-obsessed. It's Jeremiah's job to point this out time and time again, and he does so faithfully for 4 decades. For a prophet is one of those interesting figures who spends their time telling others what's going to happen in the future if people continue their present behavior. Ancient prophets spent much of their time telling the people collectively about the consequences of making certain choices and giving them an idea of how the divine being was reacting to those choices. And this is true not just for prophets mentioned in the Hebrew scriptures or in the New Testament, but for the many prophets of Islam and for Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha. This is the prophet's job, essentially to act as the conscience of the collected people to whom they are prophesying, to call them out on the moral implications of their attitudes and their behavior. Well, Jeremiah, we see in his call, was somewhat reluctant to embrace this role of outspoken moral conscience. He protests when he's first called and says that he is only a child. In fact, he was probably about 21 years old, understandably feeling pretty young to be telling whole nations of people that they were on the wrong track. The divine, however, does not in the least credit this reluctance, immediately saying instead, "Do not say I'm only a child. Do not be afraid, for I am with you and will rescue you." And then the Great Spirit touches Jeremiah's mouth in some kind of physical manifestation and says the phrase that most of us protest against when we're having an argument: "I have put my words in your mouth." And this is a relief to Jeremiah. It gives him confidence and reassurance. He rises to the occasion and is able to go on with his prophetic calling from there. Well, what does this conjure up for you when you think about a prophetic calling? Perhaps not much, for perhaps you don't think of yourself as a prophet. After all, generally, ancient prophets bring to mind hirsute men with loincloths, eating locusts and honey, straggling around in the desert, being shunned by more socially acceptable people. I'm not sure any of us would want to actually hear that we've been set apart in this way and appointed as prophets. And yet, living in the world in which Jeremiah lived, and living in the world in which we live, it is incumbent upon us that we speak up from time to time if we are truly people of faith and truly love mercy and want to do justice and walk humbly with our God, as another prophet, one named Micah, put it. Calling out what we see as the bad behavior of the present that will in turn lead to some dire and even catastrophic consequences in the future does not seem like the far-fetched task of a misanthrope and recluse. It seems more like the common sense response to a world full of pain and trouble. It seems actually like the kind of thing we do from time to time internally, if we're self-reflective and sincere. Considering what we've done wrong and how we can be morally better sounds like the work of a conscience attuned to the moral teachings of the faith we profess. I have from time to time referred to the organization that I direct and which UCM strongly supports, Vermont Interfaith Action, as a moral conscience for our society. I've said that that is the role we take on when we won't let the state get away with turning those who have no home back out on the street, or with treating those who have made one mistake in their lives that's big enough to land them in prison. Let that be the defining moment of their whole lives. I've said that VIA is like a moral conscience that won't let white people get away with turning a blind eye to how black and brown people are treated, as long as us white folks live a privileged life. I've said that VIA is also like a moral conscience that won't settle for human beings destroying the planet on which we live, leaving desolation and a lack of habitability for our young people. For these are the 4 core issues that VIA is focusing on these days: affordable housing and homelessness, corrections reform, racial justice, and climate action. In each, we have made or are in the process of making significant impact. We gained many millions of dollars from the federal COVID and infrastructure legislation to build units of housing that are affordable to working Vermonters and those who are precariously housed. And we've been repeatedly pressing the Scott administration and the legislature for a comprehensive plan for emergency shelter for those who are unhoused. Time after time, our voices have stopped or delayed throwing Vermonters out on the street or dooming them to a life of couch surfing and sleeping in their cars. We continue to demand a comprehensive plan for more reliable housing with supports to help those who live with mental health challenges and substance use disorders. We gain commitments to creating a more restorative and trauma-informed culture in our state prisons, better programs to prepare those incarcerated to succeed when they are released, and higher standards and accountability for corrections officers. We've joined with other stakeholder organizations to propose a Vermont without a prison for women, instead lifting up community-based alternatives to incarceration, emphasizing treatment and support instead of punishment. VIA has mobilized groups of white allies partnering with the Vermont Racial Justice Alliance to pass legislation to target supports to BIPOC-owned businesses and to provide assistance for people of color to buy land and houses. We've also written a guide and are experimenting with canvassing and neighborhood outreach to help local community members engage with their municipal police departments, demanding equitable policies and treatment toward people of color. One of our biggest recent campaigns was our statewide support of Prop 2, which abolished slavery without exception in the state constitution, which won with 81.5% of the vote. And we recently co-sponsored Faith Climate Action Day at the State House, supporting legislation that, among other measures, would benefit the transition to renewable energy in a way that does not penalize those at lower income levels. We're able to do all of this work because VIA is composed of many people who answer the divine call on their lives to not only identify the wrong paths that our society is headed down, but also to speak up about and offer a different path. Most of us who are involved were probably reluctant at first somewhat fearful of the consequences or lacking in the confidence that we would find the right words. This reluctance and fear, after all, happen to the best of us. You heard in the reading from Amanda Gorman, the outstanding young woman poet who read her amazing and inspirational poem at the inauguration of President Joe Biden, that fear is real. She candidly shares about it, her fear, her terror even, of becoming a public figure as a result of this reading, open to attacks from white nationalist extremists who manifest their hatred in acts of violence against people of color. She also says she feared being exposed to COVID, especially as a person who could not yet get vaccinated. Both of these were good enough reasons not to step out and speak up on Inauguration Day. Yet she decided to embrace her fears and to let them become motivators to fight for what she and so many of the rest of us hold dear. She said that what she found waiting behind her fears was all those who searched beyond their own fears to find space for hope in their lives, and who welcomed the impact of her words on the acts of justice that they were undertaking. Truly, having other people to share in the fight, integrating ourselves into the communities and organizations that are doing the work of justice, can give us the confidence we need to become the prophets that we are called to be. For I firmly believe that in today's world, the divine calls not just special, somewhat odd characters to be prophets, but the divine summons all of us who love justice to take action to make it a reality. I understand that the theme of this month here at UCM is transformation. And what more important transformation could any of us undergo than changing from an everyday individual to a prophetic leader in a movement of a community of prophetic voices? There are two ways that I see having a group of like-minded folks around us gives us the courage to move forward with our own prophetic ministry. One is to be grounded in a faith community and to look up to the example of those who have already embraced their prophetic calling. One such figure was the great Martin Luther King, Jr. We stand on the shoulders of such an outstanding minister and eloquent prophetic voice. His "We Shall Overcome" speech draws on the thinking of figures like Thomas Carlyle and William Cullen Bryant to assert that the lies of discrimination against and dehumanization of Black Americans could not endure forever, and to affirm that because the arc of the moral universe bends toward justice, we all, oppressed and oppressor, will someday overcome the system that has separated us from one another, that has led to the hatred and violence, the pain and polarization, the lack of empathy and defensiveness that we see in our world today. Martin Luther King's words and example live on to bring us together in our communities of faith, to challenge those among us who understand our faith makes us ministers in our own right, to answer the question of whether we will be chaplains of the empire or prophets of the resistance. The second way that we can deal with our own reluctance and fear of becoming prophets is by joining together not just with people in our own communities of faith, but to also join together with those who share our vision and passion in other communities of faith throughout our state and our nation. For this, I again commend to you the work of Vermont Interfaith Action. For we have, in the last 17 years, expanded from 7 congregations in Burlington to over 70 congregations in central Vermont, the Upper Valley, Brattleboro, and Bennington, as well as Burlington. We employ 4 professional organizers in these 5 regions. And through our membership in the national network, Faith in Action, we join our prophetic voices together with those of prophets in 20 states and 3 countries outside the U.S. if being aligned with all those who search beyond their own fears to find space for hope in their lives is what it takes to claim our prophetic role, then VIA is an organization where you can go to do that. So friends, my prayer for you and my request to you this day is to embrace or continue embracing your calling to be a prophet in our wayward and hurting world. Overcome any reluctance or fear you may have by leaning on those in this faith community and by wrapping yourselves in the arms of VIA. For I truly believe that in our postmodern times, these associations are the ways in which the Spirit of the divine will put the words in your mouth to be an effective prophet, so that we may all join the ranks of Jeremiah and Martin Luther King Jr. and Amanda Gorman. Just as the world needed them, it needs us to be the prophets we are called to be. May it be so. Let us join together in our closing hymn. Please stand in body or spirit to sing Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire, number 34.
As we draw our service to a close, we extinguish our chalice, but carry its healing flame, the warmth of community, and its spark of hope into the week ahead. Please join now in reciting our unison mission statement. We welcome all as we build a loving community to nurture each person's spiritual journey, serve human need, and protect the earth, our home. And we'll now have the postlude from the Crones. I think Kay Maple wanted to say a word about this particular song, so it has an interesting connection.
Exactly sure I wanted to do this, but As it says in your program, the music was written by Linda Hirschhorn, a Jewish woman who is actually a cantor from Northern California. And the text was adapted from the poetry of Mahmoud Darwish, a Palestinian poet, actually considered the national poet of Palestine. In 1988, he wrote the Palestinian Declaration of Independence. And he is considered to incarnate, I can't read my own writing, quote, the tradition of the political poet in Islam, the man of action whose action is poetry.
I have a million nightingales on the branches of my heart. I have a million nightingales on the branches of my heart, singing freedom, 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 singing freedom, freedom. Freedom. I have a million nightingales on the branches of my heart. I have a million nightingales on the branches of my heart. Singing million nightingales on the branches of my heart. Singing freedom, freedom, freedom. Singing freedom. I have a million nightingales on the branches of my heart. I have a million nightingales on the branches of my heart. Singing freedom, million nightingales on the branches of my heart. Singing freedom, freedom, freedom. I have a million nightingales on the branches of my heart. I have a million nightingales on the branches of my heart. Singing freedom, million nightingales on the branches of my heart. Singing freedom, freedom, freedom. Singing freedom, freedom, freedom.
Words again from Amanda Gorman. Hope isn't a promise we give, it's a promise we live. Tell it like this, and we, like our words, will not rest. Blessings to you.